I'm at Dague in the News Channel 13 newsroom to give you some idea of what is happening locally, where there have been no violent attacks, no repercussions in terms of any violence from the horrible events that we're looking at in New York City. However, there will be implications up here. Certainly, the Albany Medical Center tells us, as we're looking at some of the victims in New York, that they are a designated backup hospital for New York City. They have not yet been told of any patients which will be coming north, but they are getting ready because they expect that with the horrendous number of injured in New York City, that in all likelihood some will be brought north. The Red Cross Blood Center in Albany tells us there has been no national call yet for blood. They think there may be. They are trying to set up a line locally to help people who have friends and relatives in New York City find out about their welfare, but that is some time off. The Blood Center does tell us that they request that anyone who is scheduled to give blood today, please go through and give blood. Anyone who else who wants to, I would call the Blood Center. I would not just go there. Schenectady tells us that at noon they are opening the polls. As far as they know, primary day still continues. We do know, of course, that the New York City primary is off. Apparently upstate it is on. Will they close the state capitol? There had been a report initially they were thinking of it. At one point, state police told me they thought they were going to close all state offices, but now the governor's office says they believe they will send home non-essential state employees only, that there will be no wholesale evacuation or closing of state offices in Albany. All Amtrak service south of Albany is now off. No trains are moving to the south of Albany at all. We do know that some schools in the area are closing. We are firing up our school closing network. We will put school closings probably at the bottom of the screen in a crawl eventually. I believe that's all of the breaking news. We can also tell you that Benita Zahn is at the state capitol at the moment on the telephone with us. Benita, are you there?
Yes, I am, Ed. Okay,
state police told me at first they thought they were going to evacuate the Capitol, the concourse, and everything. Now, apparently, they've decided not to go that far. Is that correct?
That's what we understand. So far, a number of people from the State Office of Budget have been coming out. They were told about 20 minutes ago that they could leave and go home. They were told not to worry. They were told to be alert, however. If you didn't know, Ed, you would think it was business as usual here, although the stream of people... a small stream, I should say, coming out of the Capitol, a little more than those going in. But there is definitely, when you speak to the folks who've already left, a sense of concern.
Is there any additional security? We know that the Mayor Jennings ordered the perimeter around the federal building in Albany is sealed and additional security there. Have you seen any additional security around state buildings?
Just slightly around the Capitol. There's always a state police vehicle at the Capitol. Today I can count 4 or 5 of them.
Right.
And when we pull up and want to park or set up a live truck, normally you don't need permission. Today everybody's talking to everybody, so that's not business as usual.
The governor is in New York City today. We know the communications because we're having some trouble, and NBC has told us, in fact, they're not sure how long they'll be able to sustain continuous coverage because their facilities are damaged. Do we know if communication between the governor and his office up here is fine and has been used?
That I can't answer specifically. However, in talking to the state police, they have, in fact, been notified about the governor's whereabouts. So it would seem to me that the line of communication is still open and moving well.
Benita, stay there. There is a live truck on the way, and we'll be seeing you fairly soon. And again, from state police, we know there is some consideration being given to closing state offices. At the moment, though, they are just sending non-essential employees home. Benita Zahn at the state capitol. Bill Lambden is live at the Albany County Airport. That airport, of course, is closed, as are all airports across this country, part of the security measure. Only ticketed passengers, I understand, are being even admitted to the building terminal. I know there's just been a press briefing over there. Doug Myers, who heads airport public information, has just talked to the press. I think Bill Lambden is about to stand by live. If I don't see Bill, he is. Bill Lambden, are you there?
Yes, Ed, here I am.
Okay.
Yeah, we have just completed a press briefing, and I can tell you what the situation here is at the airport. They describe it as a heightened security situation. They are not allowing any cars to park in the terminal area. That is to reduce the opportunity for any kind of bombing or other incident right by the terminal. I can't verify that no one is being allowed except ticketed passengers. I can tell you that the second floor, the main gate area of the airport, no one is being admitted through security. A number of people were coming off planes. Some people had boarded planes to fly out when a ground hold was put in at about 9:40. They were eventually taken off their planes. Other people have been coming in. Flights have come into Albany, flights that were en route. We're also told that there was one flight that was diverted to Albany. It was flying into one of the New York City airports. John Egan, the airport manager, would not be specific about what airport, what flight, but that flight was diverted to Albany, landed successfully. They are making the facilities here at the airport available, of course. They're giving people drinks and food. They're making telephones available. Hotels have been alerted that they can expect overflow passengers to be accommodated. No parking in front of the terminal, as I mentioned. They are urging people not to come to the airport to look. I'm not positive that the airport is closed as such, but certainly people are being discouraged to come and gawk. And actually, at this point, it's pretty quiet here. There are not any big piles of people around. And that's basically where we stand at this point at the airport.
Bill, thank you. Bill Lambden reporting live for us at the Albany County Airport. Jim Cambrick has been the State Emergency Management. That is a state office at the campus set up to handle any sort of conceivable emergency. Jim back in studio with me now. They have been up and running, obviously, for some time.
Up and literally running, Ed, all around the halls at the State Emergency Management Center. As a matter of fact, you can see the heightened state of awareness at all the office buildings today on the state office campus. State police have tightened security as much as they can. Coordinators literally running through the halls of what is called the bunker, the nerve center of the state emergency operations. Inside, representatives from all state agencies, including the Red Cross and Salvation Army, fielding calls from their counterparts from New York City who are requesting assistance.
We've got 22 plus state agencies in here. They're going to be coordinating the state assistance and assets. Anything that's requested, the governor is pledging all full resources for New York City and across the state. Any place we need assistance, we're going to pull it in.
And Ed, crews are going to be running on 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day. They feel they have the situation under control at this point, but until they have what they call a handle on the situation, right, which is obviously going to be a while, they're going to keep on that 24 schedule until they feel they need to do otherwise.
Any idea what we'll be sending from up here? I would think rescue workers, emergency workers are going to be needed.
They're very reluctant to talk about exactly what they're going to be sending down to New York City, but one can assume by the pictures that we're seeing here today that it's going to be in the neighborhood of fire personnel and probably just manpower, because keep in mind, you know, all the bridges going into New York City are closed down, all the tunnels are closed down. They're going to need a lot of equipment down there.
Jim Cambrick on top of things at SEMO. Thank you very, very much.
You bet, Ed.
Okay, then the recap. This area not directly affected, of course, by the horrendous events in New York City, but we are responding and probably will be called on for a number of pieces of equipment and a number of people who will go down to New York City. We know Albany Medical Center, as I told you, a designated backup hospital in case of extreme emergencies in New York City. They have not yet been notified that any patients will be coming to Albany, but they expect, given what we have seen in the city, that that is indeed possible. The Red Cross locally is sending 2 people to New York at the moment. They think there may be more later. They are continuing to accept blood. They expect that there will be a real need for blood and that there may be a call nationally. All non-essential personnel from the state capitol are now being sent home and from other state offices, but there is no general shutdown of state offices. There are some schools closing in the area, and we will keep our school closing network up and running. We will be keying those, putting those up in the bottom of the screen for you. Apparently, primary day is continuing. The polls will open in about a minute and a half upstate. The New York City primary is off, but the Schenectady tells us they are opening the polls on that time. They assume the primary will continue. Mayor Jennings has, Mayor Jennings is now telling us that all elections have been canceled, that the primary is off. That's according to the Albany Board of Elections. The mayor also put extra security around the federal building in Albany some hours ago, just as a consideration. Amtrak service to New York City, Amtrak service south of Albany is stopped. Of course, the airport is closed. So if you have any need to go to New York City, I think it's safe to assume you should not and cannot get there today. We have a statement from Governor Pataki, I'm told, that is actually coming to me right now. The governor is in New York City. Interestingly, his office had been in the World Trade Center until recently. He was not in the office this morning, and the office was moved out of the Trade Center. The governor's statement: today's horrific incident at the World Trade Center, which appears to be part of a coordinated terrorist attack, is a tragedy of unspeakable proportions and a crime against all Americans and all decent people around the world. Again, this is the statement just issued by Governor George Pataki. I have been in contact with President Bush and Mayor Giuliani to ensure that the appropriate emergency response is as effective and well coordinated as possible. As a precautionary measure, we have closed all non-emergency state-related government offices in New York City. We will keep the press and public aware of that effort and other relevant information as it becomes available through the day. Again, the governor is in New York City today. He was scheduled to be down there. He's been there all morning long. His office in Albany tells us that non-essential state workers in Albany are also being sent home, but there is no wholesale closure or evacuation of state buildings. There has been additional security around the federal building in Albany, and that is the local situation for the moment. We will send you back to the national coverage. We are here monitoring everything that is going on locally as people locally attempt to get a handle on what is happening as well and what kind of assistance will be needed from our area for downstate. I'm Ed Dague at News Channel 13. Our coverage will continue as needed.